Now, will the cases will this scenario in this case, can I claim the sale consideration to be lesser? Because practically speaking, it would be impossible for me to get the sale value, which is the guideline value or the market value. So here, this is the fundamental point. Where I am disputing the sale guideline value, I have two options. One, under the Stamp Duty Act, I can go and speak to the stamp registrar, the commissioner of stamp in your respective state, and make a submission to him in the valid form saying that it should be at a lower rate for me. So they will do the inspection and they will say yes. That is option number one. Option number two, let's assume I have sold it, I am not aware of this. Then suddenly when income tax assessment comes, they are telling I have to offer at least the guideline value. I'm telling no sir, nobody will do it. So here I can make a reference to somebody known as a valuation officer under the Income Tax Act. I will make a reference to a valuation officer that will be an expert. This expert will come, he will come and check, yes, the foundation is horrible. Yes, you cannot construct. Yes, sir, water is not coming. Yes, sir, electricity is not there. Yes, it is triangular in shape. Whether any bad luck is there. Yes, sir, when I went inside the house, my wallet went missing. So definitely financial bad luck is also there. So this valuation officer, he will check all these facts and then he will give a certificate saying that yes, he has sold this property. Guideline value is 50 lakhs. He has sold it for 40 lakhs. The actual value as per my view is 40 lakhs. So it is correct. Now, what if that valuation officer does all the inspection? He comes and says the value is only 45 lakhs. Then in that case, I must admit 45 lakhs. I cannot claim 40 lakhs. Sir, what if this valuation officer comes and says the value is 35 lakhs? It is not 40 lakhs also, it is 35 lakhs. Then I must admit what I received. I cannot take a lower value. That will be very greedy. So I must take whatever I received minimum or what he said if it's higher. So in 45 lakhs, it is higher than what I received. But 35 lakhs, it is lower. So I should offer minimum 40 lakhs. Sir, one more second. What if he comes back and says, sir, guideline value is 50 lakhs. In my valuation and my calculation, the value is actually 60 lakhs. In this case, what will happen? So here it is a beneficial provision. Income tax is saying, if that valuation officer gives a higher value also, don't worry. Minimum you have to offer only the guideline value. So if whatever he gives is beneficial to you, you take that benefit. If he gives something which is worse off to you, you pay the guideline value. So that is how you do it in case of a dispute in the value or the guideline value with the income tax department. The next point is joint development agreement, because it's also very, very commonly discussed point. How do you tax your joint development agreements? We'll take a scenario. Sanjeev Kumar sir is there. So let's assume Sanjeev Kumar sir has a land in a prime area in the city. The prime area of a city, he has a land. So what he does, he has the land, but he does not have the assets to construct on. He does not have the resources to construct. So one of his friends comes and says, Sanjeev ji, you have a wonderful land in a wonderful area. I am a constructor. I am in the business of real estate. I will construct on that land. And when I finish the construction, I will build 20 flats. I will give you 4 flats. I will sell 16 flats. So the 4 flats, if you want, I will sell it also for you. If you are not interested, you already have a wonderful house. So I will sell it for you. So Sanjeev says, yes, anyway, I am not doing anything with this land. I am just sitting on it. So this is what you call a joint development agreement, or in the terms of the legal terms of the act, you say specified agreement. So they enter into a specified agreement. Now, can you tell me here, when is the moment of taxation for this? Because Sanjeev ji enters into a power of attorney. He gives the power of attorney in favor of the builder, and the builder starts the construction in year 0. Then after 5 years, he completes the construction, and then he sells it in year 7. Year 5, the completion is there. Year 7, he sells it. So when is it taxable? Is it at the time I'm giving the power of attorney? Is it at the time he starts the construction? Is it at the time of completion of construction, or is it at the time of sale? So now this was a huge issue, because department used to always come and say, sir, it is taxable at the time of power of attorney. That is when you transfer. But can I pay the tax? They'll come and say, pay the market value of the tax. I have not got any money. In year 0, I have not received anything. So then they said when the construction starts, because they have started the work. Sir, but they started 3 days later. There's no difference in my position. I've still not got the money. Then they said, okay, fine. When do you want to do it? Assessee said at the time of sale. Whenever I sell it, that is when you should tax me. Then what happened? Certain very intelligent assessees, what they will do? They will say that four flats I am getting. Out of these 4 flats, one is for me, one is for my wife, one is for my son, one is for my daughter. So I'll never sell it. I'll say everything is for my family only. I'm never selling. You are saying it is taxable only at the time of sale. No, I'm never selling. So I don't have to pay tax at all. So here is the fundamental point. Because of these disputes, they introduced a new section. They introduced a new section known as 45(5)(a). In this, they said, henceforth, whenever there is any JDA transaction, whenever there's a joint development agreement, it will be taxable at the time of the completion of the construction, not at the time of sale, at the time of completion of construction. Why not the earlier times? Because it is completely notional. Why not at the time of sale? What if I never sell? But then somebody will say, Abhishek, you said that year 0, you have not received any money. So it is unfair to tax. But even at the time of completion of the constructions, I have not received any money. It is only when I sell it, I'm getting money. So how is it fair? Sir, 1 second. You may not be getting money, but at least you are getting the improved asset over there. You are getting flats, you are getting common facilities, you are getting amenities. The value of the entire area is going up because of this construction. So you stand to gain by simply the existence of this constructed property. So when the competent authority, normally state government will have a person who will issue a certificate saying it is completed. So when that person issues the certificate, that is for all practical purposes for Income Tax Act, the day of the transfer. So whenever there's a joint development agreement, they will calculate the market value of the price of your share, price of your asset, and your whatever is the booking value, whatever is the sale value of the flats. They will take it as the sale consideration and you have to pay the tax on the same. Yes, you have not got any money, but you have got the pecuniary benefit. So definitely, because you stand to gain, you have to pay the tax on the same. Of course, I told you indexation is there. Most of you may be aware of this. Earlier, the indexation used to be done from 1981. In 1819 onwards, they have changed the base year now to 2001. So therefore, you have to take the value. Earlier, it was the fair market value as of the asset. Suppose I purchased it in 1980. They said as of 1/4/2001, I will take the fair market value and I will index it. Later on, 2 years back, they brought one very, very interesting change, saying that don't take the fair market value, you have to take only the guideline value. Now, in 2001, guideline values were very, very low. It did not reflect the true value of that property, especially Tamil Nadu. We can tell very surely and confidently the guideline value in 2001 did not really reflect what is the true guideline value of the property, the true market value. This change has gone under the radar. Not enough people have raised an issue against it, but very silently they have brought this rule. So they said, if a guideline value is not there, then you take the fair market value. If not, you have to take the guideline. So most places in India, I know the guideline value is not reflective of the, fair market value of the property. It was very new that time. It was still very early on, but this is the amendment which has been brought into the Income Tax Act. So ensure when you're planning for this, you have the right guidance and you plan it accordingly so that you are able to justify the value that you're taking as the base year over here for your cost of acquisition. As there is of course, shares, because equity shares is one of the most traded things. So here there are a few points to do. So what if I am trading shares? What if I am regularly selling shares? I am getting capital gains from this. If it is long term, you are holding it for 12 months or more, it is long term. And then your tax is payable at the rate of 10%. It is exempt up to 1 lakh. After 1 lakh, it is taxable at the rate of 10%. Till 3 years back, it was fully exempt if it was long term. 3 years back, they brought this rule saying up to 1 lakh exempt, beyond that taxable at 10%. Sir, what if it is short term? I'm holding it for less than 1 year. I got a tip from my friend. You buy it on this date, then you sell it after 8 days. So I've sold it. It will be called short term. What is the tax rate in that case? A tax rate, if it is short term in nature, is taxable at the rate of 15% on equity shares. It is taxable at the rate of 15% when you are getting a short term capital gains on equity shares. Now, let me ask you another question. During the day itself, I'm selling it. Morning, I purchase the share. After 6 hours, the price is fluctuating. It has gone up nicely. I'm selling the share. Here, is it short term or long term? Naturally, you will say it is short term, less than 1 year. But here, I want to introduce to you a new concept. There, I am not taking the physical delivery of the share. Where I'm not taking physical delivery of the share, as Mr. Shankaran has rightly pointed out and as Mr. Ramaraju has pointed out, this is known as a business income. This is known as a business income. It is not your capital gains. Today's session on capital gains, but this is an important part because many people think that it is a capital gains, but it is not a capital gains. It is a business income and what we call as speculative business income. Where there is intraday trading of shares, it is known as speculative business income. If you have any loss from the speculative business, normal business loss, I'm doing a business, I'm having a loss, I can adjust it against all of my other incomes other than salary. So I'm having heavy interest from fixed deposit. If my loss from business, I can adjust against that. But where I'm having speculative business loss, I cannot adjust it against anything other than speculative gain. That is the fundamental point when it comes to intraday trading. So where I don't take delivery of shares, it is known as intraday trading. Sometimes the delivery date, some people, if you are knowing the broker, he may say, I'll come and collect it after 2 days, 3 days. Effectively, if you have not taken delivery on records, then my dear friends, it will be treated as intraday. It will be speculative business. Now, here's another important question. What if I'm doing futures and options? What if I'm regularly trading in futures and options? Will it be long term or short term over here? Now, here is a very important classification again. If I'm trading in futures and options, my dear friends, in any case whatsoever, it will be treated as business income. It will not be short term. It will not be long term. Futures and options will be treated as business income. And futures and option is not speculative business. It is considered to be regular business. You may think, same share I am trading during the day. I'm getting it, treating it as speculative loss, speculative gain. Futures also similarly only I'm doing, but for that you are saying it is a normal business. Don't ask me the logic, sir. I'm giving you the tip only. So if you are having any loss from futures and option, please set it off against other heads of income. Of course, other than salary, you can set it off against all other heads of income. But if it is speculative, which is shares, intraday share trading, then it is known as speculative. You cannot trade, you cannot set it off against other heads of income. You cannot even set it off against capital gains. You can only set it off against your speculative business gains. So that is the fundamental points for intraday trading when it comes. Now there's one more very, very important section that needs to be discussed. Section 56.2. Now this comes under other sources, but the fundamental point is associated to your capital gains. I'll tell you why. I gave you a scenario where you are selling a property where the guideline value is 50 lakhs. You are selling that property for 40 lakhs. So let us assume you don't dispute the valuation. You are just agreeing the valuation, etc. So what you do is you say that, yes, I will offer 50 lakhs to tax. I know I collected only 40 lakhs, but it's an emergency fire sale. I need this money for some emergency purposes. So therefore, okay, sir, I will pay the tax. I don't care. Now somebody is buying it from. So let us assume one gentleman, he is very, very great difficulty. He has identified someone who is selling it as a fire sale. And he says, okay, I will buy it from you at 40 lakhs. I will pay the money now itself. The moment he meets you, he says, I will give you a check for 40 lakhs. So you need the money urgently. So you are agreeing to the sale and you are ready to pay the tax. Now what this section 56.2 does, they made an amendment 2 years back. As per this 56.2, now they are saying that where the assessee is purchasing the property at a value lower than the guideline value or the market value, then he is getting a pecuniary benefit over here. The value of the property is 50 lakhs. He is purchasing the 40 lakhs. 10 lakhs rupees is like a gift to him. Pay tax under income from others. Look at this. Look at this shocking amendment. After great difficulty, I found someone who's making a fire sale. And here I am having to pay the tax on the purchase. Already my life savings I'm putting on this purchase. They are come and telling me the difference between the value that I am purchasing it for and the guideline value is a gift to me. The buyer, it's a gift to me, so I have to pay notional tax on it. I said, sir, what do I stand to gain by paying the tax on the same? They are saying that benefit is there, sir. Whenever you sell the property, no, the 10 lakhs, you take it as a cost of acquisition, they are saying. So this is the unfortunate scenario of this current position of law. It's highly unfair. I don't agree with it. Because what in suppose imaginary scenario, I'm selling it, you are saying I can take the benefit as a cost of acquisition. But what if I never sell it? What if I'm purchasing the property for my family heirloom? The tax I've paid on the purchase as a gift, notional gift, is highly unfair. But that is the position as it is. So please be careful. Once again, I would suggest go for a proper planning when it comes to this. So fundamentally, now we are at the final part of your capital gains, which is what is known as exemptions. See, ultimately, your capital gains, after calculating your sale consideration minus cost of acquisition, minus any expenses in connection with the transfer, will get what you know as your short-term or long-term capital gains. Where it is a long-term capital gains, you can reinvest and take it as completely tax-free. So here there are three critical provisions which are always used. One is section 54, next is section 54 EC and section 54F. Let us try to understand each of these provisions because they are extremely important when it comes to your capital gain planning. Let us start with section 54. So what is the asset I should have sold? I should have sold a residential house. Please note, I should have sold a residential house. 2, that should be a long-term house, very clear. 3, that house I should have offered it to tax under income from house property. 4, next very important point. Whenever I sold it, whatever capital gains, not the sale consideration, look at the difference. Whatever capital gains I'm calculating, that capital gains, I need to reinvest into a new residential house. I need to purchase a residential house at least 1 year before or 2 years after, in case outright purchase. Suppose I am buying outright a house, it has already been constructed. I want to buy it, I want to book it, then I have to reinvest either 1 year before the date of sale or 2 years after the date of sale. Sir, what if I want to construct? I want to buy a land and construct a house. No problem. You have to finish the construction 3 years from the date of sale. So therefore, in these three conditions, you can take the entire capital gains to be exempt if you satisfy it. But there is one more condition here. I cannot resale this house for 3 years. Once it is done, let's assume I finished, I got the benefit of capital gains. Immediately after construction, I want to sell it. You cannot. I have to hold on to that house for a minimum period of 3 years. Only then I can enjoy this. If not, the year of sale, they will reverse whatever exemption I got. Next is 54 EC. Now look at the difference over here. Under 54, the asset I sold should be a residential house. Under 54 EC, it can be any long-term capital asset, even shares. I'm selling shares for a heavy price. That is a long-term capital asset. So I should reinvest where? I should reinvest the capital gains, not the sale consideration. Enough if I reinvest the capital gains within 6 months. Earlier, 1 year before, 2 years after for complete purchase, 3 years after for construction. But here, 6 months from the date of sale, I must reinvest in what is known as specified bonds. It is saying that I should reinvest in specified bonds. So REC or NHAI bonds, I must reinvest. But I have a ceiling up to 50 lakhs only I can reinvest. What if my capital gains is 70 lakhs? Then balance 20 lakhs, I should reinvest somewhere else, or I must pay the tax on the same. So maximum cap is 50 lakhs over here. The only difference is here you have a lock-in period. Whenever you reinvest in REC or NHAI bonds, you have a lock-in period of 5 years. Earlier it was 3 years. Now they have increased this lock-in period to 5 years. And then finally, you have something known as 54F. Now, if you read 54F, a layman, if they read 54F, it is almost identical to 54, almost word for word, but 3 critical changes are there. What are these 3 critical changes? Under 54, the asset sold must be a residential house. Under 54F, it must be any long-term capital asset other than a residential house. So I should have sold shares, I should have sold land, I should have sold jewelry. In all of these cases, I can reinvest in 54F. Next, what is the condition? I must reinvest 1 year before or 2 years after for purchase or 3 years after for sale for construction. That is the same. No change there. But what should I reinvest it? I should reinvest it in a new residential house, plus provided the assessee does not own more than one residential house at the time of the sale. This is a very, very interesting point. If I'm someone, I have 3 houses, I'm selling one house now. I want to sell a land, I want to buy a 4th house. I cannot do it because under 54F, it is saying that I should not own more than one residential house. So one residential house plus new residential house. So it will be 2 after including the new house. So I should not own more than one residential house at the time of the sale. So this is the very, very important point when it comes to 54F. And the final important point is I must reinvest the entire sale consideration. Under 54 and 54EC, whatever capital gains, if I reinvest, it is enough. After adjusting cost of acquisition, cost of improvement, indexation, everything. But under 54F, what I should reinvest is the entire sale consideration. If not, I will get only a proportional exemption. I will get only a proportional exemption. I will get. So those are the very, very fundamental points when it comes to reinvestment. So here there are many case laws. Of course, it is there in my presentation. I'll just cover certain important ones before I take the questions because I saw a lot of questions have come. So what are some important points over here? The first thing I want to tell you is all of these reinvestment provisions, they are beneficial provisions. What we call beneficial. So you should be liberal. There's a very old decision called Bajaj Tempo versus CIT. It's a Supreme Court decision where the Supreme Court held. Supreme Court made it very clear. They said these are the beneficial provisions. You must be very liberal when you apply these provisions. You should not be hyper technical. So if you are hyper technical, then the purpose of this provision will be frustrated. So let me give you an example what they mean by this. So I saw in the questions, somebody had asked this question. So let me put a scenario, imaginary scenario for you here. Here I am selling my house. I'm selling my house and I want to reinvest it. So when I'm reinvesting, I understand that DLF is building a very beautiful apartment in the heart of the city. So I decide, okay, DLF, very reputed builders. I want to buy a house which is built by them. So I buy a house by this DLF builders. So I know they'll do a good job. So I say, okay, I'm buying. So I ask them, when you will finish, sir? They're saying, don't worry, Abhishek, sir, within 1.5 years, you will have the house. Excellent. I can get the benefit of the capital gains also. So I book with them. DLF are taking 3 years. They're taking 4 years. They're taking 5 years. So therefore, this is what we call an outright purchase. And by the time the construction is complete, 5 years. Can you tell me here, will it be eligible for reinvestment under 54 or 54F? Or do I stand to lose in this scenario? So this is where once again, Bajaj Tempo is going to come into the picture, where they said, be liberal with the application. In this scenario, Abhishek has already made the payment to DLF. He is not constructing the house property. I have not got contractors. They are not coming and building in my land. I don't have control of the land. I don't have control of the builder also. I paid the money. I don't even have control of getting the refund of the money. So therefore, I am stuck and the builder is delaying. They're saying still allow the exemption. Don't deny it. As long as it is genuine. If he is forging a bill, if he is forging as if he is reinvesting, then you take action. But where genuinely has made the payment and he has reinvested, why are you being hyper technical? It is not his fault that there's a delay. Allow it. Bajaj Tempo, take the benefit of the same. So all the provisions under section 54, 54EC and 54F are meant to be liberally applied. They are not meant to be hyper technical in the rule. But here there are a few more important points. I'll tell you why. Now take section 50C. Now 50C, what does it say? I have sold a house which is for 40 lakh rupees. I have sold, guideline value is 50 lakhs. So for calculating capital gains, it is taking 50 lakhs as a sale consideration. What does 54F say? 54F says I must reinvest the entire sale consideration. So here, can you tell me how much am I expected to reinvest? Should I reinvest the actual receipt of 40 lakhs or should I reinvest the notional amount of 50 lakhs? I have not actually got 50 lakhs in my hand. It's a notional amount. Income Tax Act is deeming the consideration to be excess of 10 lakhs. But for 54F, if I want to reinvest it, How much should I reinvest? Should I reinvest 50 lakhs or should I reinvest 40 lakhs? So here is where the law is coming interesting. So once again, people said you have to be liberal. How can you ask them to reinvest 50 lakhs? In a Karnataka High Court decision called Gauli Mahadevappa, they held you must reinvest whatever is the sale consideration for capital gains. So even though you've received 40 lakhs, for the purposes of capital gains, you have to pay 50 lakhs tax. So even though the actual receipt is lesser, you are expected to pay capital gains on the notional value. You are expected to reinvest also for the notional value. So next somebody asked, okay, fine. One gentleman called KC Gopalan in Madras High Court, he did the same thing. He said, okay, fine. I will reinvest whatever 50 lakhs I should reinvest. So 40 lakhs, whatever he received, he reinvested that. 10 lakh rupees he borrowed from somebody else and he reinvested. Now here suddenly the court came and the income tax came. They said, sir, you have to reinvest the same money. You should have reinvested 50 lakhs from your sale. How you reinvested 50 lakhs? You got only 40 lakhs. So we are going to disallow 10 lakhs as the reinvestment. So what is this catch-22 situation? One, you are saying that I must reinvest the notional amount of 50 lakhs. And when I am reinvesting that notional amount, you are saying I have not actually got it, I cannot claim. So this is where the High Court suddenly they woke up. They said, we have to defend the assessee, we have to take care. We have Bajaj Tempo. So they said, sir, he has to reinvest the sale consideration. Where he is getting the money and all, department cannot ask. So it need not be the same money. He can reinvest from wherever he wants. So therefore, he wants to reinvest, he wants to borrow and reinvest, he can. If he wants to take a loan, he can. If he's getting as a gift, he can. It should not be only from the funds of the sale. He can do whatever he wants from it. So therefore, don't be hyper technical. So now somebody has asked, this is a very important point. Sir, should I deposit into the capital gain account scheme? Now, this is a point that I should have covered. I'll mention it now. I am selling a land on February 2021. I am selling a property. I am getting a certain amount of capital gains from it. Remember, I told you the amount should be reinvested 1 year before, 2 years after for purchase, or 3 years after in case of construction. Now, I have 3 years time. So let us assume I'm constructing. I have 3 years time. So by the time the return filing season comes along, so right now the date is 30th September. So 30th September is my due date of filing return. What the law is saying, if by the due date of filing the return, I sold in February, up to September, I have time to file the return. So by the time you file the return, you should have reinvested. So I want to reinvest in a new residential house, I should have reinvested. I should have constructed, I should have started the construction or finished it. If I have not done that, they are saying I must put the money in something known as a capital gain account scheme, CGAS. I must put it in a capital gain account scheme here. So therefore, what we call a CGAS. Somebody asked, should I put it in? Yes, you must put it in this capital gain account scheme. But let me ask another question. So what if I don't put it? Return filing date has come. I have missed putting in the capital gain account scheme. What will happen? Once again, if you read the act or you read the law, if you don't reinvest in the capital gain account scheme, you will not get the benefit of the exemption. But our courts have come, Bajaj Tempo, Guardian Angel decision, where they said be liberal. So the courts have held, as long as he has complied with the conditions of the law, that is enough. So as long as within 3 years he has finished the construction, as long as within 2 years he has purchased a new house, as long as within 6 months he has reinvested in EC 54 bonds, notified bonds, please be happy. Don't come and bother him by saying that, no, why you didn't put an account scheme? We will not allow. He is put to whatever needs to be put. That's all. You be happy with that. Don't get very hyper technical once again. So therefore, this is a beneficial provision that they have done. Another very important question, very practical question. Can I reinvest in the name of my spouse? Sir, I have sold the land which is in my name. I've got the money from it. Can I buy a house in the name of my spouse? So here's a very, very practical question many people have. So here there are a diversion of use. You see in CIT versus Natarajan, once again Madras. This assessee sold the property. He reinvested in the name of the spouse. Department said, no, you should reinvest in your name only. Court came and said, Bajaj Tempo, be liberal. He can reinvest in spouse name. Don't come and stop. As long as he's reinvesting, be happy. But in Delhi also this case came, where what one person said, every time he sells a property, he used to reinvest in somebody else's name. Reinvested in one in wife name, one in son's name, one in daughter's name. So multiple houses. I did not say multiple spouses like somebody in the points, multiple houses. So if you are reinvesting in multiple houses, then in this case, in each different person name, I'm going to be reinvesting. So here is one question. Can I take the benefit of this in? So here you can very much reinvest in the spouse. There's nothing wrong, but they should not be an independent assessee. If they are an independent assessee, then in that case, the income must be clubbed with yours. Their income must be clubbed with your income. So I cannot say, this is my money, I'm reinvesting in my spouse name. Then when somebody comes and asks me how many house properties you have, Abhishek, I'll say, I don't have anything, sir. My spouse only has, sir. My son, daughter only have, sir. That is not correct, because essentially that is my house property. So for a minimum of 3 years, I will have to ensure that I satisfy these conditions in this case. So I can reinvest in the name of the spouse, but beware of how the taxation is going to happen, the aspect of the taxation, because this will be a situation where your spouse is getting a property for inadequate consideration. It can be treated as a gift, or it can be clubbed with your income. So that's a very, very important point over here. Other than this, there are many questions. So I have a lot of case laws, as you can see over here, almost 20 pages of, there are a lot of case laws. So this will go on endlessly if I take the session. So I will share the PPT with the participants. I request you, please do go and register on the AITPA website. The organization and the team will end up sharing the same with you. So thank you so much for a very, very patient listening. I will take the question and answers now that has come up in the chat box. Okay, let me start. Sir, capital gains on REIT, treatment of capital, is it like shares less than 1 year, 15% taxable? So since it is in the nature of REIT, it is not in the nature of equity shares. So it will come under any other category. So holding it for 3 years is maybe a mandatory criteria. But the interesting point is REIT is you'll get substantial dividend. The capital appreciation may not be as substantial as your dividend in your REIT. So if you're getting any capital gains, yes, you have to hold it for 3 years. Sir, my client sold a land on 22nd February for 27 lakhs and he purchased a flat on 17/6/2021. Sold it in February, purchased in June. Okay, for 28 lakhs. Which section should be applied? You sold a land. If you're purchasing a flat, 54F, you can do it, provided on the date of such sale, you have only one house property in the name. So then you can claim under 54F. Okay, one is regarding whether draft assessment order DRP procedures applicable in long-term capital gains immovable property transferred by NRI. You can go to CIT appeals itself, so there's no reason to go to DRP in these circumstances. You'll only be complicating the case. But yes, you can go to DRP where there's any international taxation involved. But my suggestion here is to go to CIT appeals. Sir, can you please end the presentation? Sure, I will be happy to share. Sir, how come an individual who doesn't maintain books of accounts has to prove the cost of improvement for indexation? Sir, because it is not about books of accounts, it is about evidence. You are using the cost of improvement to reduce your capital gains. If you don't have to prove it, then everyone will say, sir, I improved my house, I improved my house. Equal to the sale value, I will say I did improvements. And then I will say no capital gains. So it is a mere case of fact. They are checking if it is a fact or not. Of course, the government, if you have a right person representing you, definitely they can represent in a case saying that without necessarily providing proof, they'll be able to give circumstantial evidence to prove that such a improvement has happened. So those sort of scenarios do exist. But you cannot simply claim, I have improvement, I have improvement. You have to have some sort of proof for the same. So land in which coconut trees are there at the rear portion, will it be considered to be agricultural land? So this is very Nagarajan sir. That's why I said the same Madras High Court one decision you have saying agricultural activity is not carried on. So therefore it is not agricultural land. Same Madras High Court, you have another decision saying coconut trees are there, banana trees there, agricultural activity you should allow. So therefore it's a case to case basis. In my view, as long as you have not one coconut tree, at least a few coconut trees, maybe you have some banana trees also, you can definitely claim the same to be exempt. But you are saying village house, it has to be agricultural land. Please note that point. Sir, while claiming under section 54, Agreement value, stamp value to be taken for capital gain. Yes, you can. Whatever expenses you are incurring in connection with the transfer, if you have the documentation for the expenses, even brokerage charges, legal charges, etc., you can definitely claim it. So get in touch with your accountant or your auditor, so they will tell you. Sir, village people object to putting higher value on the document. Consideration fully received through the bank. Whatever is the guideline value only they can take in these scenarios, sir. What can we do? So this has to be done. It cannot be circumvented, unfortunately. There do exist scenarios like what you are saying. If it is agricultural in nature, it is not taxable at all. So as long as it is less than 2 lakh sale value and you are not contributing 269 ST, you can do the entire transaction in cash also. That is perfectly fine. So indexation available for holding how many years for mutual fund? If it's an equity oriented mutual fund, indexation concept is not there. If it is any other mutual fund, then you have to hold it for at least 3 years. Sir, how to get guideline value? Sir, it is there either on the internet or you can go to your sub-registrar and get the guideline value. Sir, under JDA, landowner is declared capital gains as per guideline value at the time of getting occupation certificate. Subsequently, he sells it at a higher price. How and when is the difference tax? I think this is an excellent practical question that's come. So here effectively there are two situations. One, you've got all the property, you already got it for a certain capital gains value, you already offered it to tax. So once again from that date you have to see 3 years. Again you have to sell it at the market value or whatever is the guideline value at the time versus your consideration. And whatever you paid at the time of completion, that will be your cost of acquisition. So you can claim that and adjust it. So in case of systematical withdrawal plan, whether amounts systematically withdrawn are subject to taxation. Yes, it will be subject to taxation, but not on the withdrawal, but based on the capital appreciation over there. So when you're withdrawing that amount, there will be a calculation of the capital appreciation accordingly, and that you have to pay the tax on the same. Because at the time of withdrawal, the sale is technically registered. So the infrastructure bonds matured, amount is long-term capital gains or other sources of income. Normally, maturity of bonds itself does not mean it is a capital gains or not, sir, because you have invested it. So it is not necessarily any differential that you're getting will be interest income, normally, which you are already offered to tax in bonds. Sale of agricultural land, not in municipality, but in town panchayat. Kindly throw light on this. You are absolutely right, sir, because the wording is municipality / panchayat / town panchayat. So all three conditions you have to check, not just one. If an agriculturist has land in the proven agricultural zone and he is selling this agricultural land to build a plant, what will happen to the capital gains? In my view, you can very much claim it to be agricultural land, sale of agricultural land, and you can claim it, sir. That is my absolute view on the same. And even though department may take a different stand here, you can very much argue the case. There are multiple cases. If you plan it correctly, you can very much claim it to be exempt. Sir, loss from share, how many years can it be set off to? If it is long term, up to 8 years. If it is short term, up to 4 years, you can set it off. Guidance value of land is 10 lakhs per acre. Actual sale consideration is 5 lakhs. On what sum should I pay the capital gains? Sir, on 10 lakhs only you have to pay, sir. Otherwise, you have to get a valuation officer to justify a lower valuation. Sir, what if consideration is paid in cash? Nothing wrong if consideration is paid in cash, but you have 269 ST. 269 ST is not capital gains related. Any transaction that happens in cash beyond 2 lakhs will be taxed at a penalty of 100 rupees, 100% of the transaction. I am buying a land for 50 lakhs. Then under 269 ST, I have to pay 50 lakhs as a penalty to department. 50 lakhs penalty to department I have to pay. So that is why generally cash transactions in real estate has come down. Sir, land and building capitalized. Okay, in case of partnership, they want to do family settlement. I think partnership is a separate issue altogether. We are planning a session on the taxation of the same, and we will definitely cover this issue there, sir. Finish construction within 3 years. Okay, sir is asking, is the section saying I have to finish the construction in 3 years, or is it saying I should start the construction within 3 years for the purposes of reinvestment? So like Sriraj sir, actually there's one very intelligent associate in Hyderabad. What this gentleman did is while filing the return, he said, I'm going to construct a new house, and he claimed the exemption and he filed the return. Suddenly 3 years later, that end of the 3 years was approaching and he had not constructed anything. So what he did, he heard the inspector is coming to inspect his place. So immediately he ran there He put one brick. He did one puja. And then when the department asked why you are not, can we add it? He said, no, I have started the construction. You see, you come to the place, one brick is there. I did puja and all with that brick. So here department said 3 years is for completing the construction. It is not for starting the construction. Then everybody will start only on the last day. Then they will take the benefit for multiple years. So it talks about completion and not about starting. A reasonable delay will be acceptable. They don't have a problem about a reasonable delay. Bajaj Tempo, be liberal. So reasonable delay is okay. Investment in 2 houses where LTCG is less than 2 crores. Okay. Yes, this is a good point. Once in a lifetime, you can reinvest in 2 houses when the capital gains is up to 2 crores under 54. But that is not, people are not taking use of that section very much, but very much it is there. So you can put it in 2 houses up to 2 crores. Superb coverage. Thank you very much. In case of 54F, what if the construction is not getting completed within 3 years beyond the control of the assessee, especially new flat? As I told you, sir, I gave an example of a new flat construction. If it is being constructed by somebody else, which is not in your control, no problem. It is completely liberal. But suppose I am engaging contractors. I have a land. I want contractors to come and build over there. Then in that case, I cannot say it is beyond my control. It is very much in my control. So as long as it's not unreasonable, I would say it's okay. Now COVID was there last year, no construction could have happened. So therefore it is a reasonable delay. So they will not be hyper technical with you. But suppose I'm telling everyone is there, COVID is not there, completely normal scenario. My contractors are there. I'm saying you go now, you come back after 1 year. Then that is not a okay delay. So it has to be seen on a case-to-case basis. So what is the obligation for TDS on a NRI? Okay. Where the TDS of NRI is there, sir is asked if it is sold beyond 50 lakhs. Whenever NRI is there, even if I'm selling a property for 1 lakh, I have to pay TDS of 20% on the sale consideration. On the entire sale consideration, I have to pay 20 lakhs, my dear friends. So here, if you want to do it under a lower rate, go to your chartered accountant, ask him to file a Form 13 or ask him to do a planning for the same. You can do it at a lower rate or at the capital gains rate. But if you are a resident, then your sale beyond 50 lakhs, TDS at the rate of 1% will come. But non-resident, you don't have any limit because it's covered by what we call section 195. Any transaction, whatever amount, you have to deduct at the rate of 20% on the sale consideration if you don't have Form 30. So salary person has invested in share. Many trades are in intraday and few are short term during the year. How to furnish the ITR? You have to furnish ITR 3 in this case, sir. So you don't have an option. Whenever you have business income, the intraday has to be shown under ITR 3 as business income. Your short term, long term can be shown under capital gains. Excellent, clear presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. What is the provision on capital gains on the sum received from the sale of the house received as a gift around 3 years back from the parents? What is the capital gains on the sum received? So when you are receiving gift from the parent, as I told you, Rao sir, here in these scenarios, you can very much claim the cost of acquisition of your parents and use the indexation benefit from the day they purchased it. So there's no problem here. Can you mention the special deposit where I need to invest the LTCG? You have to put it in a capital gain account scheme. You go to your bank, you ask your bank for capital gain account scheme. They'll have a separate bank balance for this. So it is like you have 2 options. You have a FD option, you have a SB option also. So you have to reinvest in that particular option. You have to still comply with the rest of the conditions within 3 years of construction, 2 years for purchase. Those terms are still there. That does not change. Sir, I have transferred in a single transaction to my wife rupees 50 lakhs from my savings account for a personal use. Whether it will be taxed when my wife has to pay the tax. A gift between husband and wife is not taxable. So because you have transferred the money, there's nothing. But if she purchases an asset out of the money you have gifted to her, then that will technically be your income. So that is how it is works under clubbing facility. Sir, whether LTCG on sale of land comes under 54F? Yes, Narayan Rao, sir. Any land you are selling, you cannot claim under 54. You can either do 54EC or 54F. Spectacular presentation. Please provide the PPT. Definitely, sir. We will be circulating. I request all to please register with the AITPL. So the next program, the registration link will be shared. So they will be sharing the PPTs. Excellent delivery. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. What is the obligation of the TDS on the buyer for NRI? Okay, this we already covered. Comprehensive coverage. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. My wife owns one residential property. She has equity LTCG that she has invested in another residential property. But she has two properties bequeathed by her parents also. Is she entitled to claim exemption? Under 54F, it may be challenging, sir, because she already has more than one property. So therefore, it may be challenging to claim under 54F. You can explore other options. There are some other exemptions. So depending on your circumstances, that the same needs to be planned. Excellent session. Thank you very much. Sir, how to calculate, for sale of agricultural land to claim exemption, is it necessary to get FMV as on 1/4 to the agricultural land means exempt? No need FMV, nothing. You just have to say exempted income. That's all. No calculation, no capital gains. Don't even worry. Sir, if a person gets immovable property by settlement, by quoting 25 lakhs as value, if she sells it after 5 years for 50 lakhs, what will be the settlement? So you have, of course, the market value of the settlement deed for purposes of stamp valuation. You can that is not be the fair market value, because you will have to take the cost of acquisition or FMV as on 1/4/2001. Whichever is higher, you have to take if it is before 1/4/2001. If you have purchased the property after 1/4/2001, or your father or whoever is settling it on you purchased after that date, then their cost of acquisition only must be taken. So reinvestment of property in dependent or spouse name. Okay, this I already covered. Sir, can the amount of capital gain account scheme be withdrawn at any time? So you can withdraw it only for the purpose of this reinvestment. It has to be withdrawn only for the purpose of reinvestment. It cannot be withdrawn for any other purpose. So that is the clear distinction when it comes to this capital gain account scheme. Suppose there's a scenario where you're not withdrawing it for 3 years, then the entire capital gains, so what you have not reinvested, will become taxable for you. So with this, we have completed almost all the questions. Thank you very much for a very patient listening and interacting with us. We will definitely be sharing the link and the video for the program. So thank you so much for a patient listening. So I request you, please do join for our future programs also. We will be sharing you the updates and the regular PPTs and the programs. We are lined up a large number of leading national speakers from across the country on very tax relevant topics. So thank you so much for patient hearing and joining in such large numbers across various platforms. So have a safe and enjoyable weekend. Take care. Stay safe. Thank you.